In 1973, the director of the CIA gave a direct order: destroy every file connected to a 20-year program that drugged and tortured American citizens. The destruction order nearly worked. Over a single afternoon, the agency eliminated almost the entire paper trail of the project known as MKUltra, rather than a conspiracy theory. During the Korean War, American prisoners held by Chinese and North Korean forces began returning home with a disturbing pattern. Some publicly denounced the United States, confessed to invented war crimes, and expressed sudden sympathy for communism. The American press latched on to a single explanation: brainwashing. The CIA took the threat seriously. They believed communist forces had successfully developed techniques to override individual willpower, triggering a reactive psychological arms race. The agency launched early, crude research efforts under Project Bluebird and Project Artichoke, experimenting with hypnosis and chemical interrogation. On April 13, 1953, the CIA formalized a massive, highly secretive successor program named MKUltra. Leveraging the geopolitical paranoia of the era, the intelligence community granted itself permission to cross extreme ethical lines without any oversight. Day-to-day operations were run by Sidney Gottlieb, a CIA biochemist who personally introduced LSD into the agency's toolkit. He designed MKUltra as an umbrella, funding 149 distinct subprojects across 80 institutions in the US and Canada. The objective was behavioral control, finding reliable ways to make a human talk, obey, or break down completely. To hide the source of the money, the CIA funneled its budget through front organizations. This kept the researchers, the universities, and the test subjects themselves entirely blind to the government's involvement. The United States government converted civilian institutions into a sprawling, unregulated laboratory where informed consent effectively did not exist. In November of 1953, an Army bacteriologist named Frank Olson attended a private CIA retreat. Without his knowledge, Sidney Gottlieb laced Olson's drink with LSD. Over the following days, Olson experienced a severe psychological break, suffering from intense paranoia and deep disorientation. Less than 2 weeks later, while under CIA-arranged psychiatric care in New York, Olson fell to his death from a 10th-floor hotel window. The CIA told Olson's family that he had suffered a nervous breakdown and taken his own life, a lie they maintained for over 2 decades. By the time the family learned the truth, the statute of limitations had expired. The delay permanently shielded the agency from any legal accountability. Some of the program's most damaging work involved no chemicals at all, relying instead on pure psychological abuse. In a 1959 Harvard study run by psychologist Henry Murray, 22 undergraduates were wired to physical stress monitors and seated under harsh interrogation lighting. They were then subjected to vehemently abusive verbal attacks. One of the unwitting subjects in this brutal experiment was a 16-year-old mathematics prodigy. That student was Theodore Kaczynski, who would later retreat to a Montana cabin and become the domestic terrorist known as the Unabomber. Historians debate whether this specific experiment directly caused Kaczynski's later actions. However, the documented cruelty inflicted on a teenager illustrates the severe collateral damage of MKUltra. By 1973, the political climate had shifted. The Watergate scandal unraveled the Nixon administration, generating public hostility toward unchecked government secrecy. Sensing the changing tide, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all MKUltra records just days before his forced departure from the agency. Helms and Sidney Gottlieb successfully shredded 2 decades of internal memos, research files, and raw experimental data. But they had made a crucial oversight. Roughly 20,000 pages of financial records were misfiled in a separate CIA building and survived the purge. Without the accidental survival of those specific budget requests and payment receipts, the true scale of MKUltra would have been successfully erased from history. In 1974, investigative reporting in the New York Times exposed a pattern of illegal domestic operations by the CIA, sparking immense public pressure for transparency. This led to the 1975 Church Committee, a Senate investigation that used the surviving financial records and testimonies to finally expose the framework of MKUltra to the public. The resulting fallout prompted President Gerald Ford to issue a 1976 executive order formally banning non-consensual human experimentation by U.S. intelligence agencies. Yet, because the detailed physical evidence was deliberately shredded, no one was ever criminally prosecuted for running the program. We have verified the historical facts of the operation, but the intentional destruction of evidence guarantees we will never know how many American lives were quietly altered or destroyed by their own government.